It's an honor and pleasure to be here as part of the CIO Sync Forum. And I think what y'all are doing and the messages that you're giving today are just so important for the community in general and specifically to the technology industry as we can see it. And it's really wonderful being able to share our thoughts with you this afternoon. And I hope it's as enjoyable for you as it is for us. And just to give you a small brief background of who I am and what I do currently, because I think that's so important to set the context. So I run a company called Wequity, and the whole theme and understanding on the pillars of what we are dependent on is that we say that equitable principles actually give you equitable outcomes, and in the end there will be diversity for all. And so this forum actually is such a breath of fresh air, because then we can actually practice these principles of equity all along. I now request Annapurna probably to say a few words so we can start off this discussion in earnest.
I am Annapurna. I am working for Bajaj Electronics. So I'm very happy to share our thoughts and chat with Ms. Geetha today. Though both women and men are equal, since women lost some opportunities earlier, so we are talking about women in specific. Otherwise, everyone is equal. Okay. So as Geetha rightly said, it is equitable support we have to extend to them. So in due course of our charting, we may explore many ideas.
That's awesome. Actually, when you said, women should be given an opportunity, I'd like to throw some statistics, Annapurna, if you don't mind, because if you look at just STEM and look at India is ranked number 1 in terms of the female graduates that we have. So we have 43% of STEM graduates as women, and the highest in the world. But unfortunately, we fall to 19th in terms of employing them. And I think that's the worry that Annapurna and I have together, is that there is a leaking pipeline from the time somebody graduates all the way when they reach some, the positions that we both are in terms of the CXO community, where it drops to a drastic 2%. And that's the concern that we have. And I think that's the thing that we should address at this point, because we are looking at gender diversity. But one of the things, I would step back, and also because we are in the context of 2021, where everybody is only talking about the pandemic and nothing else but the pandemic. So I would probably like to talk a little about how the pandemic has actually affected the way, A, we work, B, the way we live, and C, the way we breathe. And I think the last one, the way we breathe, is the easiest one, because, we are now wearing 3-layer masks or whatever they're called. Each one has an opinion, which is the best one. But, but the way we work and the way we live also has changed. And I think, Annapurna, it'd be nice if you could tell us the way we work, how it's changed.
So there were no timings, Geetha. No timings at all. It starts early morning, ends up midnight. So who is to be blamed? Who has to stop? Who has to put a comma? Nobody knows. Okay, it stretches like anything. There is a convincing note. Okay, so we are handling our family also, or domestic affairs also. Okay, it's okay. Whether to say okay or not to say okay also, nobody knows. So it is all chaos in a way. But very good thing is deliveries were there, like tasks were not pending, and IT companies, they were doing awesome during this pandemic also. They were no doubt about it. Only thing is, there is no distinction between personal time. There is no line between personal time and official time kind of situation. And for women especially, every day was a Sunday. Everyone expects to be a Sunday to replicate Swiggy and all other things, Pizza Hut and other things at home. So it is really challenging, especially, I feel.
Right. And I think
what do you say?
Yeah, you brought how we work and live very well contextually, because I think that there became a time when there was no difference of how we lived and how we worked. Everything seemed so merged. In fact, there is that earlier on, there was a WhatsApp forward that was going around saying, the person who's sitting in front of the camera, of course, has to be a lady, yells at her son saying, how many whistles did that pressure cooker go? And then her boss on the other side says, I heard 3. So it's like, it became like a joint effort to make it happen. But I think you brought out a valid point, is that there was no punctuation marks, means there was no full stop, there was no comma, there was no exclamation mark in the way we were trying to manage the pandemic. And I think from my experience with talking with the community and people reaching out to us, one of the things that come out starkly is that the square, the burden of the pandemic and what it's brought has actually fallen on the female. And do you agree with that, Annapurna?
Yes, absolutely. I was telling, no, every day is like a Sunday without a maid, without any support, and with full work, official work for those who have still jobs, and
Exactly.
online classes for children, and writing exams along with them, attending classes, being playing the role of a teacher also simultaneously.
Right. So actually, McKinsey did a survey, and actually they took China as their population base, mainly to say, how does COVID impact you? And one of the things that came out very clearly is that they felt that non-inclusive dynamics was at its peak during the pandemic time. And I think that brings us now to this natural progression where we need inclusivity in our organizations. And more than ever, we need gender inclusivity today. And I think it's we've talked about the business case for diversity, and how different perspectives bring innovative solutions. There's enough research to show companies that are headed by women are financially more successful. And then you have a huge talent pool out there, as a result, about 49% extra, because you're going to look at the females. But at the same time, it's just not about hiring. You have to, when you assimilate them into your organization, there are a few things that you should do. And Annapurna actually joined a new company during the pandemic. Do you want to share with how well they assimilated you in, and how it's necessary to be more inclusive than ever?
So, fortunately, all are very in welcome mode, and they have given, since I am new to the domain, also retail domain, from healthcare sector, I joined in retail domain. So they were explaining each and every point where there are gaps, and how to understand those things, what works, what doesn't work. Not only my colleagues, my CFOs and other people in my company, other CTOs in the domain, in the retail industry, they helped a lot, like understanding the vendors, limitations of the products, everything. Like this period, work from home or whatever it is, this period helped me to understand this domain, and what is good, what is yet to be done, all these things very well. Like, so I got excellent support from my all the colleagues.
Oh, that's awesome. So, so do you have some words of advice what other people should do?
Yes. So first thing, our male colleagues in any company, they have to understand that they know also. Many times I heard gents saying that, so women are very good at these things like multitasking and financial planning, budgets, and especially execution. So they want to see the things done like anything. And they have emotional intelligence. Earlier, there was some discussion whether a chief process officer, process management officer is required to implement bots and for automation and other things. So actually, it comes under change management. So the change management, if it is on the shoulder of a lady, so they work with everyone as to how the process have to work and other things very easily. It's not that gents cannot do it, but women can do it very easily. Like it is natural to them. Okay. So other than emotional intelligence, they're very pragmatic. So that these are the qualities required in technology industries actually. So they're visionaries, they want innovation, they try to satisfy everyone as far as possible, okay, understand the concerns very easily. So so many things in the technology field, they come natural to them. So one thing I want to tell is, one thing women require is a paradigm shift. They can grow, they can grow on the ladder of leadership, okay. So they if they are mentored on that part, technical and other soft skills anyway they have, technical skills they can acquire, okay. Only one thing required in my view is paradigm shift. So when I was a budding technology expert or whatever it is, at that time, my bosses, they forced me to undergo some trainings. One of those trainings, that is 7 habits of highly effective people. That is a 4-day workshop, and it was awesome, really. So it changed me like anything. Along with that, they sponsored me for CISA, Certified Information Systems Auditor, and some quality courses and many certifications at that time. Okay, so that helped me to change my thinking. At the same time, I was equipped and I was given the position also. So as you were talking about that equitable support, I like that word like anything. So whoever requires whatever kind of support, if that is given, so organization will get a very good resource.
That's actually perfect. It actually reminds me about Harvard Business Study when you talked about pragmatism, the emotional intelligence that women bring to the table. There's a Harvard Business Study which they looked at saying about men and women and how they describe the positive words associated with men and women. And since we're talking about only women, some of the things the positives that they describe is that they're very compassionate, they're very enthusiastic, they're very energetic, and they're very organized. And incidentally, now when McKinsey did a survey as what are the things that are needed most, considering the work from home, considering pandemic and how mental health has affected a lot of people, it strangely came about that the things that they spoke about were the very words that Harvard said were the positive words to describe women. So it becomes like more, and I'd urge people who are listening to us on this call that it's now more than ever that you should focus on diversity, because it's going to only help you, because the very things that women bring to the table in terms of compassion, enthusiasm, energy, and organizational skills is exactly what is needed for you today as a leader. And so, it will be a wonderful thing that your organization can, link it back with the men's positive words, which are analytics, versatile, articulate, and very level-headed. So if you have both of those things, I think at the same table, and you look at leaders who have both, I mean, irrespective whether they're men or women, it'll become all the more reason for you in terms of the solutions that you provide will not only be more innovative, but it'll also have different perspectives, as well as result in financial success for your own organizations. So one thing that when Annapurna and I were discussing, that when we were thinking about it, we were saying, is there something that we can give from our own experiences that you can take back? One of the things that Annapurna raised was, that you should look at women leaders specifically, and try to give them equitable opportunities. And if I'd like to just explain equity a little bit more to you, because it's a term, actually when I started Wequity, everybody thought that I was starting a financial services company trading in stock and shares. But the equity here that I'm talking about is that not everybody should be given the same equal opportunity. And I'll give you a small example. For example, if all of us are, if you're looking at the sports arena and the race starts, there are different tracks, and you would have noticed that the persons in the inner track is actually pushed a little behind, and the outer track person who has to run more is, pushed a little in front. So that advantage is given based on which position you get on that track, and that's equity. It means that the person on the outside track has to be given something different, so he has or she has an equal chance to win the race as a person who gets the inside chance. It cannot be dependent on luck. It has to be something that the organization has to provide, so that equitable opportunities are given to everyone, and as a result everybody will finish the race. What are your
So
thoughts on that, Annapurna?
it reminds me one picture, one photograph. It was viral on WhatsApp also. Actually, there was a wall. Other side, something is happening. So some three people want to watch over the wall. Okay, so three equal height tables, stools were organized there. But the shortest fellow cannot see. For longest fellow, tallest fellow, it is still more. Okay, average fellow, it is okay. So then somebody has come and adjusted the tables given, and now all the three will be able to see. That is what is equitable support.
Right. So that's perfect. I mean, yeah, that was doing its rounds, and that's actually what equitable support means. And so one of the things, yes, you should go back, look at your organizations, make sure you're giving equity and not equal opportunities to your women. And the second thing we wanted to touch upon was the fact that, because everybody does, ignore it a lot in terms of, if I have a fracture, I can come and show you and say, listen, I fractured my arm. And here's the x-ray for that, right? And then you can say, oh, I'm so sorry. I know, because now you fractured your arm, you can't type on your laptop. But what do I do when I am in severe anxiety, severe depression? I need to just talk to somebody, get inspiration from someone. And so we urge that you go look out for it. It became redundant in the last few years, the employee support groups, but I can assure you women love community, and they love sharing within that community. So what are your thoughts on that, Annapurna?
Yeah. Doctors advise women to be with people, talk with people, and take more initiatives, enjoy many things to overcome depression. So, if we can give more opportunities to them, it is in their welfare also, actually.
Right. Yeah. So it's because I think it's not looking at men or women differently. I actually wanted to publish this hashtag saying "we for us and us for all," because the minute I don't know if you've heard of the Stanford curb effect, where they did a study saying that people with who are differently abled, they did a study in the shopping malls where they were given ramps, and as a result, um, you know they were doing a study of seeing how many people use those ramps, and they were kind of amazed that a lot of people used it, because if you were carrying a heavy trolley, you were using it. If you had a baby in a pram, you were using it. So there was a 40% usage, though it was meant only for people with differently abled. Everybody was using it. So the curb effect necessarily means that if you do something for the less fortunate in your population, it will benefit all. And I think that's a nice view of looking at it, because as leaders, as CIOs of organizations, when you go back, if you go with that mentality that there is a curb effect in everything you do, it's not that why are women getting all the promotions, or why are women being considered different? Why? It's not about that. If you have very family friendly policies or things and flexibility in the workplace, it not only benefits the women, it benefits the men too, and in the end it benefits the organization, right? So
Yeah. At some point in time,
yeah.
I was rethinking whether being a professional woman, am I doing like taking less care of my children, like that. So then my older son, he counseled me. What he said, he said, "Mom, you do whatever you want. Whatever you do with joy. right? So you do it. So seeing you, we blindly follow you. Don't worry, you need not do anything for us. So by doing itself, you will influence us. So that's great, really. And he told another thing: if a woman does something good, so she influences many people.
Yeah, I know. There's
So
a saying, you teach child, you educate a village kind of thing, but you teach a woman, this is my own saying, might be that if you teach a woman and educate a women, I think families, villages, and countries succeed, because even GDP grows if women are employed. So I think it's a great thing that what he said. One of the interesting things that we've notice along the way in terms of our own experiences is that um, eh, and it's come out starkly in the survey that LinkedIn did on called the Opportunity Index, where they said 4 out of 5 women felt that they missed out on promotions, right? And that's because we're not doing, as CXOs of organizations, we're not doing something right. And what that is, it's for you to probably go back and study your organizations to find out what that is. But there is definitely something there, because this is what the Opportunity Index says, and this is specifically to India. And another question that was asked in this Opportunity Index was, then okay, what stops you from progressing, right? And this is the interesting one, because this is what you have to go back and build your organization around. Is like 7 out of 10 women said that it was they had no time and that they had to take care of their families, right? And I have friends male colleagues of mine, who've said that, because of the pandemic, we got a ringside view of how our wives struggle from a day-to-day basis, and we've pitched in. But I think if you look at the Pareto principle, this must be only 20% of the population. 80% of the population belongs to another friend of mine who expected his wife to bring his tea at 4 o'clock with a couple of biscuits, because he's working. Not that she wasn't working, but his job was more important. So do you have thoughts on that?
it was every day was like a Sunday for many. So expecting more, expecting every treatment like a holiday along with work. So that hectic it was for many.
Reminds me of a cousin of mine who's an engineer. So she said, if it's a Sunday for the family, it's a Sunday for me too. So she said the menu changes, kitchens close at different times. So wake up to the fact, because today it's a holiday for me too. And so I think that's something that we would, since we don't seem to be having any questions on the chat, it's like something that we would urge you to do. First is go and look at, your kind of ways that you are promoting women. Look at ways and avenues are giving them equitable opportunities. Then look at the ways that your organization is dealing with the whole pandemic, because I tell you that, I've been speaking to a lot of psychologists, as well as we had actually run a mental health week for the Wequity folks, where it's completely so ignored, and that it's pandemic, it's there, it's true, and business models have changed a little. At the same way, the rules of engagement have also changed a little. So go back and look at that. I would also probably tap Annapurna's expertise in the area, because she's also been a professor and then moved through corporate ranks like this. In terms of, what would you say is the best practices that these CIOs should go back with? Something that you enjoyed, you thought
Mentoring is the very important thing, Geetha. They have to understand their female employees and their strengths and where they can excel. And if they, what you say, that direction they have to show. And they have to assign such kind of tasks. Sometimes fear stops women. So we may not be able to do, maybe family may suffer because if I take up this activity. So once a very big project was given to me, so everybody scared me, saying that why are you taking up this project? Then my boss told only one thing. So you will be left alone if this project you take it up? No, right? We are all there behind. So why do you worry? So that acted like a mantra on me. Yes, I am not alone. Though I am assigned with this project, it is like a team. So everyone is there in that. They will play their part, right? So if I have any problems, they will not leave me. So that kind of confidence is to be given. So mentoring, showing the direction, giving confidence, and exposing to various trainings and workshops that will do wonders.
Yeah, that's perfect actually, because things that we get from organizations who are asking us to help them in the whole journey of becoming more equitable is, you know, how do we get this whole mentoring and sponsorship up? Because sometimes we don't even have enough women in our own organizations for them to be mentored by their, women, because they give more. It's a different aspect. We don't know how the, men should mentor. How can men become male allies and support women? So we get all these kind of questions. So I think you've answered that very nicely. But one of the things that also that women touch upon very often is they'd like to have role models, and they need people who have inspired them and walked that path before them, and so they say that if they can see those footsteps before them, they get like energized and say, okay, we can if they can do it, we can do it too, right? Because very often um, we have struggled, and then when we go back and tell those stories to other women, they come back with questions of how did you struggle, how did you manage the whole piece, and what are the tips that you can give them. So I think having role models within the organization, and if you don't have, I mean, hire them, but even if you can't do that, probably get them to speak, and so that women in the organization can get exposed to it. Do you have a favorite role model who's a woman, Annapurna? I'm throwing this at you, but
I was
yeah.
working for Satyam. When I was working for Satyam, so for this Women's Week or for March 8th, they used to bring accomplished women. Okay, so once they invited Kiran Bedi. So so Kiran Bedi was talking. So that is again another turning point for me. So after listening to her, I understood whatever apprehensions I had earlier. So I could get rid of them. That will really help.
Right, so it's a life
Seeing is
changing
believing.
moment, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so
seeing is believing.
yeah, seeing is believing, because if she could do it, why can't you do it? And she actually struggled in a much more physical world than we are in. We are more in a mental world, but she's in a physical world and she could survive. Why can't, I mean, we, that kind of um so conscious of the time, I'll just wrap up from my end and hand it over to Annapurna, is that I would urge you as CIOs, as I've been saying throughout this conversation, because I believe strongly in social impact. And I feel the message has to go to every individual in the tech space, and because technology is going to rule the world, and digitization has happened so rapidly. I mean, some things that we thought would take 5 years has now happened in 10 weeks time. So there is so much happening in our space, and we can really change the world with the way technology is used. But at the same time, the makers of these technologies should be equal men and women. Otherwise, the technology will not serve its true purpose of serving the population. So I urge you to go back to your organizations as CIOs and CXOs, and look at who are there as leaders in your organization. Are there enough women? Look at the data and make sure that you increase those numbers, look at and ways and means of making sure that those who join you feel included. And, like Annapurna said, that you should have proper mentoring programs, you should have a separate leadership or an equitable program that will assist them in being more confident and fearless in the way that they work. And the third thing that I urge you to do as a social impact evangelist is that um, go back and make sure that the employee resource groups are there in place so that you can help the building of the community and the network of women in your organization. I now hand it over to Annapurna for her last thoughts on this and her advice to the CIOs.
One of my bosses, once he said, like women are very good at all arts, like making things better, making things cheaper, saying that things happen with cheaper prices, lesser time, okay, and they make everything better and for more people, so that they can do very easily. That is a statement given by one of my bosses. Okay, so here you on this platform, I appreciate, I thank all my bosses, colleagues who have helped me, who have mentored me during my journey. And I hope many women leaders in future will appreciate, will thank our colleague CIOs like this. Many will get gratitude and appreciations like this. That's what I hope.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's a lovely message for International Women's Day that's coming up on March 8th. Well, this is a preview of my LinkedIn thing that's going to come out where I'm saying it's a day for celebration. It's a celebration of us as women. It's a celebration of our achievements, and it's a celebration of those who've supported us, who've been behind us or guided us, either male or female, in the journey that we've taken so far. On that note, I hand it over to the organizers. Thank you so much. Annapurna, you want to say anything?
Thank you, Geetha. Nice chatting with you, and thanks for the organizers for everything. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Geetha and Annapurna. We had actually opened the floor for questions from the audience. So we have two questions coming in from the audience. That is what kind of unconscious biases still exist for women in tech? So that is the first question which came in. So it's open to either of you all, actually.
I know, I will give it to Annapurna, but she said many times during her discussion, Annapurna, that every day is expected to be a Sunday. And women are expected to, cook and clean and look after the children as if it's, they're not working themselves. And I think that's one of the unconscious biases that, we have to understand that we live in a social setting, and society then dictates a lot of the ways that we think and the schemas that we put in our heads. And as a result, you think, I remember these when my kids were very young, when they learned Sanskrit, they used to say, the father goes to office and the mother is in the kitchen cooking. That's the sentences that they learned. So we have been enforcing such ideology and thinking at such an early age for all children. And you cannot, I can tell you this, there is no way you can dust your feet on the door and come into the office and be a different person. Because I myself, when we're driving, now I don't drive because of the pandemic, but when we're driving on the roads, when we see somebody put a left indicator and turn right, it is a woman, So, it's so ingrained in us, the thinking. So we're not going to dust it and go. So the unconscious bias that's going to run is the same thing that you're going home and doing. If you go home and expect your wife to give you tea and coffee and allow you TV time and handle the remote to yourself, that's exactly what you do in the office. You're not going to change. Annapurna, you can probably give a softer perspective on that.
No, they will do. Days are changing, but yet to change more. That's it. My son says, you look like my mom.
I'm sorry to cut you off, Annapurna. Go ahead.
Yeah. My son says, you look like my mom when you are solving a problem when you are coming from office with so much of glow on your face. That's what always they used to say when they were children. So
Awesome.
they understand. So seeing is believing again. So more get the roles, more get the opportunities, more change will be there.
Geetha, any last words?
No, I think she summed it up. More opportunities, more roles, more women in the workforce, things will change.
All right, we have one last question. What practical measures can be taken to ensure gender equity at the workplace? Any measures which your organization is taking as of now to enforce, gender equity at the workplace organically?
I think Annapurna is good at answering
The
that.
senior leaders in the organizations I worked, they were very conscious about the what's the ratio of men and women in the group. Like when we were attending a directors meeting or in the boardroom, in the conference room, then my chairman purposefully used to count how many men were there, how many women were there. Yes, we are good, we are 50-50, or no, we have to improve, we are 40-60. So it has to be from top also. So that inclusiveness, that what you say, orientation should be there from the top also. So fortunately, wherever I have worked, I have seen, starting from my father, actually from the family onwards. So everyone was so cautious that women are to be empowered, they are to be given equitable support, opportunities, then only it will happen. And when my next person in one of the organizations said, ma'am, Annapurna, he said, Annapurna, I want to become like you. Then when he came and said, everyone around me, they got surprised. So we never saw a man saying to a woman like this, do boss. So that's what they said. So that day should come, nobody should feel surprised. All are equal.
I think that's a perfect way to end it. That nobody should be surprised, and gender agnostic treatment is what everybody should get. So long live equitable opportunities.